I could have lowered my hand because you actually answered it with Tanya, because I had a question when you talked about those two paths,
Mm.
like the non-dual one and the one with Vasasnas,
Mhm.
which you said.
Vasanas,
Because I
vasanas,
wanted
just
to ask,
form.
isn't one like really discovering your true nature, and the other one is actually in the life as a person, how to deal with your emotions and all other
Mhm.
things. So they might give you a same relief, but one is actually to know what you are, which you will never know, but to know
Yes.
that it's all experiences. That
Yes.
would have been my question, but I think you already answered it.
Well, I'll just add one other thing. Um, Liberation ends suffering. There is nothing on the tin of the can of liberation or awakening. Let me say that again. Awakening ends suffering.
Yeah.
It's an insight to your nature, and it ends suffering. It ends suffering even while suffering's appearing. I think I've called it before. Ow, wow. If I kick my toe on a low sofa, I go, ow, wow, because the insight into that pain is simultaneous. But I still kicked the thing, and because I grew up in a very traumatized environment, in like gang environments in London, and lots of difficult situations at home and outside. When I hate to say it like this, but my awakening was a liberation from my own suffering. The suffering continued, right? And then, but I was free of it.
Mm.
So I still found it difficult to navigate my life. I was still in having addictive tendencies. I was still feeling strong emotions about things, but my insight into them was, wow, I'm free of this. I'm totally free. But it would, the
Mm.
body mind has been trained for decades to be in that certain way. Now, sometimes you have certain people who awaken, and they may have awakened out of it. And I'm not judging anybody here. It's very, very clear and practical and pragmatic. Someone might awaken through these teachings, but not have had such a disturbing human existence. And they might just think the awakening is synonymous with liberation because that's what it feels like, right? But for me, there was clearly an awakening, but there wasn't a liberation because I was still behaving in ways that were self-harm and not constructive. They were way more muted because all of the pepper is reduced, right? So then liberation is when you start to, as Ramana Maharshi talks about, but it's very hidden in his text, he starts to talk about focusing directly on your habitual tendencies and liberating those, you see.
Mm.
So awakening is, wow, even though this is going on, I'm still choosing bad relationships, or I can't get my finances together, or I'm still eating too much food. I'm free of it all, right? It's that. And what I call liberation is the taking this liberation into your corners of your experience that are more dense.
It makes very much sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
And if I
This is
may, in 2 minutes, share something which very much resonates, because you know me that I had these problems with cravings and everything. I would not say that I'm awakened or not awakened, but there is a sense of this is not me who is doing it.
right.
But 3 days ago, I could really clearly see that there is no difference in the craving of a food or actually eating it. It's just a thought, like you want it or when you eating it, and it's like
Yeah.
wow. It's those small corners of my life. It's like wow, what you say. It's like it's all empty or it's all the same because it's all made of a thought. So I think
That,
this is what you mean, that in the small corners of your life, where you're stuck or
yeah.
you're doing self-harm, or
Yeah.
it gets free.
Exactly. And I'll just say one other thing on this. And I'm not pointing to any teachers or anything like that, but there is a history of awakened teachers creating abuse. of different kinds.
mm,
And people find it very hard to understand why. And it's because you can be completely free of your own tendencies, but not be in control of them. You can completely see through the nature of existence and still find it difficult to resist the temptation of the most seductive craving or entity that exists in humans, which is power. And that's why some teachers, and I'm not going to mention any names, but sometimes there is a history of teachers awakening and sharing the awakening and creating a sangha. And then they can't help themselves from using that sangha towards their own benefit. And that is the real telltale sign of awakening is can you resist your tendencies, even though you're free of them? Can you resist them? It for the benefit of all,
mm.
right? So that is the litmus test for all of us. And I'm still working on my own things around food and stuff like that. But the key I wanted to say here before I go to Lee is that what awakening does, and I've said this before, it makes this so-called healing process really enjoyable because it becomes a project, not a life sentence.
Yeah, it's true.
It becomes a
It's
because it's
true.
not you. It's just this
It's,
bag of stuff that you've been given. And you're like, oh, that's mine. Let's have a look at that. And it's
yeah,
really funny. It
uh,
becomes really entertaining. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that again.
yeah, exactly.
I,
Because I
I
see now
still,
that everything outside also becomes satsang. It's like,
yeah,
wow, oh,
yeah.
look
And
at
I'm
that.
not, exactly. And I'm not joking. I sometimes, this is really embarrassing to share this, but not really. I sometimes, I'll be walking through an airport and I'll get an urge to want to steal something. Because when I was a kid, I was in a little steely gang. And I'm like, it's so hilarious that even like 40 years later, I'm still like, I'm going to steal a chocolate bar. I would never
Yeah,
do
it's
it.
so true.
I would never do it,
It's
but
so
it's just hilarious. Like, and so in the allowing work, if someone has that tendency, it gets a bit therapeutic. But what we start to look at is what is that protecting you from, or how is that urge keeping you safe? Because
yeah.
at some point that was a beneficial urge to have, right? Anyway, I won't go into it anymore. But that you're right. That is the path is the awakening helps you enjoy the healing. If you don't do the healing, you might not need to. But if you do, it's a very good way to use your and I'm not afraid to use the word of awakening. I know some people are. I don't know what else to call it. But that sense of I'm free of what's appearing in this moment because I understand its nature is a great superpower. And it's very healthy. Instead of turning it outwards onto the work, hey, look, I'm awake, look at this. Turn it inwards to the shadows within your own
Mm,
life and bring that awakening there. And that is so powerful.
mm.
Thank you for your question.